What's up, gang? Welcome to the Friday edition of Burn It Down with Kim Brown. This is the safe space where we set oppression ablaze because capitalism is daring us to do something. Either we gonna do something or we not gonna do nothing. And I advocate burning. Awesome. I mean, yeah, fuck it. We in there now. Awesome, let's go. Burn the system down, burn it down, burn all the institutions down, and it's time for us to build anew. Because, guys, our situation is becoming increasingly more dire, and if there is going to be any kind of future for the youths, the time for burning down and rebuilding is absolutely now. I want to welcome everyone to the show. Thank you all so much for showing up and representing today, Fire Fam, as you do each and every, usually Tuesday and Friday, but you know it is summertime, so we're taking some days off so we can relax and try to enjoy the COVID world. I don't know what we're enjoying out here, but I'm very humbled and honored that you guys have taken some time to join me today. If you haven't already, please take a moment and hit like on the video. That boosts algorithm schisms with the YouTube. So any sort of engagement that you could do with the video, give us a like, a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, drop us a comment. Just drop us a comment right now. Say, hey, girl. That will work. That will work for me. I'm very grateful for you all. And please do us a favor and follow us places around the internet at BIDWKB, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, at Burn It Down KB on Twitter. And of course, you can always support the channel materially at BIDWKB on Cash App, Venmo, PayPal.me/BIDWKB. Please and thank you. Guys, this is a show truly that has been a week in the making because there has been a lot happening. I'm reluctant to call Baltimore my hometown. I was born in Baltimore. I've never lived in Baltimore. Baltimore is my mother's hometown. My mother was literally born in the house in Sandtown in West Baltimore. And because of that, I have, by extension, a deep love and affection for this city and beyond for the city, specifically for the people of the city. Black people in Baltimore have been generationally disenfranchised. They have experienced horrible over-policing in Black communities, economic disinvestment for generations. And last week, there was a confrontation of poor Baltimore and not poor Baltimore that resulted in a person being killed, but the person who allegedly did the killing is actually more of a victim here than a lot of media outlets and even Baltimore institutions are giving them credit for. So let me bring you up to speed relatively quickly. Late last week, there was a confrontation between squeegee workers. Now, I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with squeegee workers. Obviously, it's a basic concept, but in Baltimore, there have been kids working as squeegee cleaners using the squeegee to clean windshields. And this has been a decades-long thing. There have been many decades of Baltimore children who stand on the intersections near and around the Inner Harbor who solicit drivers to clean their windshields. And y'all, this is usually a very innocuous interaction. I have to tell you, I worked in downtown Baltimore. Let me rephrase. I worked in the city of Baltimore for about a total of 4 years, part of it in downtown and another part in a different part of the city, but I always had to come through downtown in order to get to the job that was a little further away. And I had lots of interactions with these squeegee kids. My mother worked in Baltimore for 40 some years, also had lots of interactions with these squeegee kids. I have never had any of these kids behave hostile to me or talk shit or throw shit or any like that. But apparently, a lot of, I would say, non-Black people who claim to have had very difficult encounters with these squeegee kids. That I'm calling some bullshit upon that. But what happened late last week, guys, 48-year-old Timothy Reynolds allegedly got into some sort of verbal confrontation with a group of squeegee workers at the intersection of Light and Conway Streets. As has been reported by other media outlets, and there's video to prove this, that indicates that after having a verbal confrontation with the squeegee workers, Tim Reynolds parked his car, got out of his car, got a bat out of his car, and crossed 8 lanes of traffic to try to physically confront this group of squeegee workers. Oh, did I mention overwhelmingly the squeegee workers are usually always Black and always young Black boys and Black men. And during the midst of this physical confrontation, where again, Tim Reynolds was allegedly swinging this bat at these kids, one of those kids took out a pistol and allegedly shot him. And after a week-long search, the child that the state says killed Tim Reynolds has been arrested. Turns out that they are 15 years old. They were actually 14 years old the day this incident happened, and then turned 15 the next day. And not only have they been apprehended, but they have been charged with first-degree murder, along with several other charges, felonies by and large, and they're being tried as an adult. And guys, if this was a different state, it would be a very, and it still is to me, a very clear-cut example of stand your ground. If someone is physically attacking you with a weapon or even with their fists, and you feel as though your life is in danger, you have every right to retaliate and defend yourself. And by the media coverage that has happened around this incident, it is very obvious that not only does the wider community, and this is not, I'm not trying to generalize here, but a lot of folks don't think that this kid had a right to defend himself. In fact, the Squeegee kids here are being listed as the problem. The response from the politicians and the institutions are, what can we do about Squeegee kids? Not, how do we keep angry motherfuckers in their car so they don't hop out and get fucked up? No, that's not the question. The other questions that are not being asked is, what can we do to help these poor children so they don't have to result to standing out on corners all day trying to solicit for squeegee work? So guys, I'm very... I'm disappointed to be having this conversation, but I am deeply appreciative and grateful of the people that we have joining us today. And let me welcome our guests for this conversation. Today, we are joined with the editor-in-chief of the Baltimore Beat, Lisa Snowden, also friend of the show. And we're also joined with one of the hosts and the producers of the Police Accountability Report, which airs on The Real News, Stephen Janis. And
hey, Kim, how you doing?
Hey, Stephen. Hey, Lisa. And I believe he's going to try his best, but artist, activist, and organizer Easy Jackson is on the line joining us as well. Gang, it's good to see you guys again, and I'm so grateful that you all have made some time to join me, but I hate that we are talking about this, but welcome back to Burn It Down with Kim Brown.
Oh, hey, thanks for having me.
Easy Jackson. Okay. I hear you loud and clear, Easy. So let's rock with this while we got you, baby. Out of all of us, Easy, I believe you are the only native Baltimorean. And I know that as you have been experiencing over this past week, the real race and class divisions that this incident involving the murder of Tim Reynolds, and I loathe to even call it a murder because I'm very upset that this kid is being charged with first-degree murder, which implies premeditation. And there's no way this kid could have knowingly shot him and had advanced knowledge that this incident was going to happen. So I want to get into some stuff there. But Easy, talk to me about the attitudes and the comments and the general sense of division, maybe, between Black and white Baltimore, between poor Baltimore and not poor Baltimore. What has this case highlighted about the city that has always been there, but that is just out in the open right now?
I mean, I think you definitely said a lot that, I agree with, Kim. I think one of the things that sticks out to me the most is the framing of it from certain journalists and certain news outlets. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Loud and clear, baby. Keep rolling.
Yeah, like certain journalists and certain news outlets, you can tell it's like this obvious framing, depending on who they are, right? So you have, white reporters who are painting Tim Reynolds as the victim and ignoring the fact that he went after these kids. And then, the conversation catering to people being afraid to drive through downtown. And it's just kind of like that age-old narrative that, dates back to, goes back before Emmett Till, you know what I'm saying, where this young man is already not allowed to be human, not allowed to defend himself, not allowed to be afraid because he's a black boy, where if it was the other way around, we all know it would be a totally different outcome. So it's just like, it's something that's been playing out ever since I was a kid. This squeegee conversation comes up every few years, something happens, and I just feel like here we are again.
Guys, before I go to Lisa and Stephen, I actually want us to take a look at an outstanding package that was done by reporter Taya Graham about the Squeegee Kids. And this is a package that Taya did for The Real News back in 2019. So this is going to be A2 Tunde. And what Taya does here in this package is what really all reporters need to be doing, and that is humanizing the Squeegee Kids, because they are viewed as nuisances by and large. I can't even say by and large, because I disagree that uniformly people in Baltimore and people traveling in and out of Baltimore view these kids as a problem. I think it's a very certain demographic of folks who have a real issue with the presence of these children at these intersections. But Taya does a good job here. Let's check out Taya Graham's piece on Squeegee Kids of Baltimore from 2019.
Baltimore City, like many others, has squeegee kids who go out into the streets and wash windows for money. But the mayor seems to see these kids as a problem. So we went and spoke to them to hear their side of the story.
Right now it's illegal to impede traffic and being in the direct line of traffic.
At Baltimore City Hall this week, a warning shot from Mayor Jack Young.
They in the middle of the street and it's illegal, and we must address it.
Aimed squarely at these young men, squeegee boys, teens who work heavily trafficked intersections downtown, washing windows in exchange for cash.
We just want to be represented as kids that want to make better for ourselves, that's all.
Young said these same teens were frightening tourists and breaking the law.
As you heard from some of the motorists, y'all have written about it, they're afraid. They're even afraid to stop. And some folk have said they don't even want to ride through downtown anymore.
But the young men who work these corners, like Pratt and President Street, have a different opinion. They see themselves as entrepreneurs, helping to support their families.
It's people out here that got moms struggling with bills, got rent overdue, you feel me? Like, we have to help our moms, you feel me? Because we're in the projects, we have no other choice, but, you feel me? It's so many people out here selling drugs. You got so many killing out here. Like, it's just so much going on, and it's as much we can bear. We're trying to get our mom out this environment, and we trying to hustle, support our hustle, our grind, you feel me? It's not that we're out here to be disrespectful to people. We like people, you feel me? It's just, if you come to us as a disrespectful manner, we're going to come back in a disrespectful manner, because we don't like that.
It's also a welcome opportunity after several teens we spoke to said they applied for but did not receive employment through the city's summer jobs program.
Jobs ain't easy. I went to youth work 3 times. I still ain't getting no job. So yeah, the way they be make everything don't work out. They say what they want people to hear instead of actually doing what they say they're going to do.
Mom's struggling. I gotta help with the kids, but I honestly like squeegeeing, like, because you never know what you'll get out here. Like, you never know. Like, some people really like us. Like, some people really like what we're doing. Some people don't think it's that serious, and I honestly think the same.
Most say the opportunity to work independently gives them incentive, an opportunity to be self-sufficient.
Because I take so much pride in it. Like you said, man, my mother's struggling with so many bills, bruh. Like, what you expect me to do? And I feel that the way the police present it as they make us leave, they make it seem they want us to sell drugs. Because they don't see the way they put us. It's the way, we not the problem. It's the way they come and handle. Like, if they pull up and say, look, y'all can't be right here, blah, blah, blah. All right, come on. But when you pull up and hop out, this, y'all gotta leave. What you doing? You know, it's a different way you can carry. Because my mother, I was brought up off respect. I was brought up the way you watch how you talk to people, how you want them to talk to you. And everything is just based off respect. So that's why I feel that if you can't respect my hustle, we gotta have a talk or something. That's why, like, if I could, I'd talk to the man myself.
That's Taya Graham reporting for The Real News. Lisa Snowden, when I see the Squeegee kids out there, again, they don't bother me, right? I'm not bothered by them. They don't bother me. Usually if I'm coming to the city, I try to make sure that I have some cash on me specifically for them. But shout out to the kids, though. The kids are becoming extremely more entrepreneurial, and a lot of them have Cash Apps and Venmo. So shout out to the innovation of Black youth, regardless of their socioeconomic status. But talk about what has brought these kids to these corners in the first place, Lisa. You heard the one young man talk about, the school, the summer jobs program, and they were not able to have access to city services, to jobs. And we're hearing a lot of discussions about that now to try to get them all so-called off the streets and into jobs. But I don't think any of these Baltimore City jobs is offering the kind of wages that these children are able to earn while out there on the corner. How is even the presence of these kids an example of the failures of Baltimore City policies going back decades?
I mean, we can talk about the latest budget that was just approved unanimously a few weeks ago. Once again, our mayor, Brandon Scott, decided to give the police more money. We've had several years, at least that I've been watching closely, where the police have demonstrated the crime rate has gone up. There's been various incidents of police acting inappropriately. Despite that, Brandon has shown loyalty to them and not to people. So to me, it's almost like he's stealing resources. Like, the young man in that video reference, like he goes down to Youth Work. Every year, the Youth Works opens up, the roles to people to apply. And every year they get way more applicants than are available to be served. What would it look like if we had a city where some of those millions of dollars that went to police who don't do anything went to helping these kids' families, so that these young people wouldn't even feel the need to have to take care of their parents? Like, it shouldn't be a situation where a teenager is standing there saying, I want to take care of my mother. Like, there's a lot of things wrong there. So it's like, that's a choice. That was a choice. I think there were, every year, the last few years, especially with Brandon Scott being in office, there's been a very concerted effort around a bunch of different organizations that have gone to tax night, which is the one time that we can kind of, people in Baltimore can go before the mayor, the city council president, and the rest of the city council and say, this is where we want our money spent. And they've provided tangible. It's not like this hippie thing where they're like, don't give the money to the police because it's not cool, or, it makes us feel bad. It's like, these are tangible ways that money can be reinvested in other ways. And the mayor has ignored them. So for him to now hustle to have this, task force or whatever it is now, because the heat is on him, you already showed, you had an opportunity to change this a few weeks ago, and you chose not to. You've been in public office your whole career. I think he's almost 40 now, 37, I think he is. You've known what this is. So it's like, I am very skeptical of whatever he's trying to do now to keep the heat off him when he's had opportunities and has not used his power to change things.
Stephen, Janice, you've been reporting in Baltimore City for a very long time, and I'm sure, as Lisa and Easy have already mentioned, the story of the Squeegee Kids is an evergreen story. It is something that is constantly talked about and discussed year after year, decade after decade at this point. But the framing that the way the media, in particular, mainstream media, not of course you and Lisa, but mainstream media outlets in the city, the Baltimore Sun, Fox 45, WBAL 11, WJZ 13. I was watching some of the coverage, and all I kept hearing was, what are we going to do about the Squeegee Kid problem? Not about the child poverty problem, not about the failures of the Baltimore City public school problem. What is your take about why criminalizing and demonizing Black children is just so easily accepted by a white audience out in the county and some of the white elites, let's say that, within Baltimore City?
Well, I produced that piece with Taya that you showed, so I would spend a lot of time down there with the kids. And the thing that struck me that was really interesting was how entrepreneurial they were, and how this is like, it's funny because this was like capitalism at its best, right? They were making $75 to $100 an hour and being quite successful. So it just shows you that capitalism is purely ideological in many ways, because when young African-American kids are finding a way to better their lives. I guess white people only like capitalism when it's old fat white guys with bald heads or something, who are making money. And it was just really extraordinary because these kids were coming up with all sorts of ways to be like ambassadors for the city, and had really had many interesting and interesting experiences, things they learned about the city, but their voices were completely closed off. Like they're just never taken seriously. Like if you pay attention to what they're doing, you're like, wow, they have a problem, which is most of them live in extreme poverty, which is a result of the city's politics for the last 200 years. There's great pockets of isolation and poverty, and they've come up with a solution, a way to really make gains. I mean, as Lisa mentioned, YouthWorks, I think only has 3,000 jobs this year. It's a classic issue because every year YouthWorks falls short. And even in the years like the year of the uprising during Freddie Gray, Mayor Stephanie Rawlings Blake cut the YouthWorks program by about a couple million. It's a constant tug of war, and there's never any money. But as Lisa points out, we can put $500 million into policing, $50 million into police overtime, no problem. But a couple $1 million into YouthWorks. So these kids are just trying to address a true, systemic and horribly, concentrated poverty, and actually being quite successful. And instead of being understood that way, they're understood as a menace. And I just think a lot of it has to do with the laziness of the media, but who the media listens to, right? They get complaints about it from people who, don't really understand it or take the time to understand the young people. And so they report from that perspective. But we went out there and did that story that you just showed because we thought it was ridiculous. And I think anyone who spends time with these young people will learn a lot and understand that they're being very innovative and coming up with solutions to problems that we just don't seem to have the will to fix.
Easy Jackson, Stephen brings up an excellent point about really the hustle spirit, and I hate that these children have to hustle under capitalism, that their basic human needs are not being met. Housing, shelter, proper education, access to healthcare, these should be givens in any society. But it's very clear that Baltimore does not prioritize these things for the youth, or else some kids wouldn't be out there in the first place. But to Stephen's point about the kind of money that the kids are out there making, I mean, the solutions being proposed by the city is to get them all, quote unquote, get them off the street and get them jobs. I'm sorry, your little minimum wage paid hourly job that you want to give these kids is not compared to the cash that they are actually out there making, grinding. So what is the city's proposing as a solution here? If they're not at least going to match the kids' wages, you can't ask these kids to take a pay cut just so they can get off the corner. That's not a good enough reason to get off the corner. What are your thoughts about some of the solutions that are being proposed? And by the way, we're going to get into what some of the candidates running for Baltimore State's attorney have proposed in a moment. But I wanted to get your take, Easy. Number one, about the money that the kids are making and how the city basically is not going to match that money as a solution to get them out of the intersections.
Yeah, I mean, it's two things that concern me. Like Lisa mentioned earlier, the task force that the mayor put together yesterday, and I was invited to be a part of that task force, a Squeegee collaborative that is a roundtable of people from all different backgrounds from Baltimore, and we're supposed to, address the squeegee issue. I don't know whether or not it's going to be effective. I think based on the people in the room, I think that I have confidence in some of the people that were in the room that, will do something. But they also were toting, work that's already been done. The mayor mentioned that he put out a squeegee action plan, a 90-day squeegee action plan back in November after a driver had chased one of the squeegee kids with a bat. And we're still not sure if maybe that was Timothy Reynolds or not, but he released the 90-day squeegee action plan with the Mayor's Office of African American Male Engagement. And they were only able to employ 27 youth for like COVID, giving out dinners, and they only placed 39 of them in permanent employment. And it's like, that's way too little. You know what I'm saying? And I personally would not even brag about those numbers. When I looked at it, I was like, all right, I wouldn't even say that. You know what I'm saying? Like, the amount of children in the city that need more than that. You make a great point. It's like, if you're making even if you just made $75 a day out there, that's more than what they would make if they even did youth works. You know what I'm saying? So I think that there is very little being done. The other thing that concerns me is the cultural aspect of it. Like, Black Baltimore has certain things that consistently are trying to be washed away. And it's not just white Baltimore. There's a lot of Black Baltimore too that's pushing for their total removal. And I'm afraid, I think Baltimore, we have an identity. We have certain things that happen here that are part of our culture. And I would like to see the Squeegee Boys more worked with and not try to remove them, because this is just one step on their path. I used to squeegee when I was younger. I didn't squeegee all my life. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was a couple summers where, my mother had a lot of children. So I was able to feed myself, by going out and making a couple dollars squeegeeing. And then I got older and I got, you find a career path, you grow up, but it also builds character being out there. You learn how to talk to people, you learn that hustle. So I'm concerned that they will be totally removed. And those are like my two big things. Like, I think the city has done too little and is stepping in, doing too little too late. And I think that there's a intentional effort to erase parts of Black Baltimore. They've done it with the Arabers. They consistently try to do it with Dirt Bike Boys. Today is Squeegee Boys.
Tunde, let's cue up A3, because I want to give everybody watching here who is not from Baltimore, who may not even be on the East Coast or from Maryland at all. But just to give you an idea of literally the generational legacy of Squeegee Kids, there was a package I was able to find. Shout out to Baltimore History Channel on YouTube, because they have a lot of old Baltimore news packages, and woo, Baltimore used to be very bad. if you don't think it's that great right now, it was even worse in the 80s. But I want us to take a look at this package, estimated to be from like 1984 and 1985, just to give you guys a real clear picture of how long Black Baltimore youth in particular have been out on these intersections hustling, cleaning windshields with squeegees. Let's take a look at this package from the early 80s.
You get a dime, and I'm holding you his money. You get a nickel. I keep these pennies. All the pennies you keep for yourself. Thank you.
They are making an honest buck, or in this case, nickels, dimes, and quarters, or are they? In fact, these Squeegee Kids can technically be called Squeegee criminals.
Have you gotten your badge from the city?
Nope.
Do you have a badge?
No, I don't have one, but I'm getting one.
All Squeegee Kids are required to complete city-run squeegee safety classes and wear a badge showing they have before they can hit the streets. It's the law.
But a lot of Squeegee Kids say, law or not, with or without a badge, they're going to come out here on the streets to wash windows.
15-year-old Talbert Sidney calls himself an amateur Squeegee Kid. He's been at it just a couple weeks, hoping to make some money to help out his mother.
Like some people out here pushing drugs, shooting dope, having all these guns, and study cracking down on Squeegee Kid who try and make something out of their life and make some money for themselves. Why don't they crack down on drugs and things like that around in the city?
So like the American colonials, they rebel against what they feel is an unjust law. And so far, a lot of these pint-sized revolutionaries are getting away with it. Horace Holmes, New Scene 2, Nightside.
Now, you know Horace Holmes needed his ass whooped for that. He needed his ass whooped. He done called them kids criminals, little revolutionaries. They out here breaking the law. Come on, Horace Holmes. I know that was 85, but still, Horace.
Criminals. Yeah, Squeegee criminals. That's wild.
Wild, but it it's an indication of how these kids have been viewed by some for a very long time. Lisa, I wanted to talk to you about the hostility, and Easy touched on this as well, because the victim in this shooting last week, Tim Reynolds, was a white man who was, I don't know where he was from, but I know he was a resident of the Hamden neighborhood in Baltimore, which has been a historically white neighborhood, a segregated neighborhood. I don't think I don't think Hamden has a lot of black residents. But Tim Reynolds was from that neighborhood, or at least lived in that neighborhood. And a lot of people viewed this confrontation by him and his aggression towards the squeegee worker along racial lines. But Easy brought up a very salient point about the class divisions that come along with how the squeegee kids are viewed, because as he said, there's a contingent of Black Baltimore that look down upon these kids as well. Talk to me about the race and class hostility that squeegee workers have encountered.
Ooh, that is you threw a lot of me just now.
Oh, I'm sorry, baby.
I mean, no, it's fine. But I mean, I think that, yeah, it's definitely a thing. I think a lot about our leadership, especially, and it feels to me a lot in the conversations that I've had with them over the years as I've been a reporter. Our Black leadership leads like they're embarrassed of poor Black people. Like, oh no, like that's your cousin that comes, and you're like, oh God, like that's kind of how they treat people that are not them. Like I'm thinking about right now, Stephanie Rollins Blake standing up in front of news cameras after the uprising that happened after Freddie Gray's death and calling people that were out in the streets like thugs. Or, one thing I remember a while back, there was a water main that broke outside of a low income community in the city. I called a politician in Baltimore about this, and they told me like, well, they were working on it. And also they were like, Lisa, we've been delivering them water, but, I'm not going to tell other reporters this because, I don't want to embarrass them, but they've been stealing the water that we've been giving them, which is just like, I was like, but they needed the water. Like there was a water main break and people were taking the water because they didn't have it. But like the attitude that they had was like, look at these like poor people that are stealing. Like, it's like this attitude of like, you're shaming us. And I wish that Black people would kind of get past this, because there is no way that we can aspire. There is no height that we can climb or that we can aspire to where white people will look at us and think that we are humans. Like no matter what, whether you're Marilyn Mosby making the most amount of money in the city or a kid on the corner making maybe a couple of dollars, we're still gonna be niggas to all of them. So I wish that they would maybe read some books and do some therapy and understand that no matter what, like, all of us are united in white supremacy, but yeah, a lot of them aren't there.
Stephen, Janice, what have been your observations about the hostilities towards the squeegee kids? And again, I'm gonna come around the circle, and I want you guys to talk about in a second about the non-hostilities towards the kids, but the kids themselves absolutely receive abuse from motorists. Seemingly across racial lines, and especially when it comes to class. Where have been your observations about this, Stephen?
Well, first off, a lot of the kids we spoke to have actually had quite positive interactions with motorists. Just so people know, it's not just constant tension out there. We had lots of stories of someone who said, yeah, this guy said, I love what you're doing, give them a $50 bill. But I think hostility towards the squeegee kids is just one facet of the hostility towards the city, which is part of the fiction in the minds of white people who live in the suburbs, who like to kind of assuage, I don't know if it's assuaging their guilt or the idea that they don't have kind of created these conditions of poverty. And it's just easy to say, look at Baltimore City, it's failing. And they look at squeegee kids as a symbol of that. And so all of the enmity that is aimed towards Baltimore, which is constant if you look on Nextdoor or anywhere, they just bear the brunt of it often. But, like I said, we talked to a lot of kids who had extremely positive interactions with people. So it's not like uniform. And I think that's part of what you're talking about with the narrative being so stale. And I think it also shows a lack of imagination, civic imagination in this area, because the kids there could be an inspiration. for many people, to think about, like something more dynamic in the city than what's some of the most interesting things about this city, than rather just look at it as some sort of problem. It was really weird. We did a story because I think the head of T. Rowe Price wrote this letter about, we don't want Squeegee Kids anymore to the mayor during the controversy. And he makes like $12 million a year. I mean, what the hell is wrong with people? I mean, these kids embody what he would say would be the best ethos of capitalism, finding a way to make a market out of something and make money. So I think it just shows there's a total lack of imagination in this area because we're so occluded by racism that we can't really think imaginatively. And these kids are very imaginative in everything they do. And it's not like a one-sided thing where they're constantly at odds with motorists. It's just not true. Hello? Whoops.
Bagheera's over here raising hell. That's why I had to mute myself. My bad.
Okay.
No, you guys are fine. But Stephen, like I said, I agree. I know people have lots of positive encounters with the Squeegee Kids. But this incident that happened last week is being framed as something that was inevitable. And I want us to take a look. It's going to be A5 Tunde from Fox 45. Lord have mercy. I feel bad for people who live in the Baltimore area and who never go into the city, but sit around and watch Fox 45 all day, because you would literally think that Baltimore is on fire, that is just being overrun with groups of marauding thugs. And then they trot out people like former Baltimore Police Commissioner Ed Norris. Ed, tell us what needs to happen. Meanwhile, Ed himself, a criminal, but we get into that in a second. Let's take a look at this package, you guys. It's not even a package, but this is about a minute and a half, roughly, of Fox 45's coverage. And I want you guys to hear how hostile it is, how antagonistic it is, and the racism is dripping all over it. So let's check that out.
Hey, get the hell away from the car. What? I said get away from the car.
Yeah, Squeegee Kid related death, a Squeegee Kid related carjacking, more death threats also from Squeegee Kid saying, don't get out of your car or else. All within a week, and not much action from city leaders or even pressure to enforce the current laws. Joining us now for this week's Fox Undercover, former police commissioner, current talk show host Ed Norris. Ed, good morning.
Morning.
All right, so you've heard the reports, you've seen it, now a death here, all related to Squeegee Kids in Baltimore. The first thing that needs to happen, why aren't we enforcing the law that's already on the books?
You have me. I have no idea. When I was commissioner, it was a top priority. If they were out, they were gone shortly as soon as we saw them. Gone, gone, gone. They have no right to be in the street. A blind man could see this murder coming. This is not new. This is not that day, these weeks. This has been going on for years. I personally observed a fist fight at Light and Lombard. Guy got out of his car, and he was not someone looking for a fight. There's a man in a business suit, had enough, jumped out, ends up engaging these guys. This has been going on for years.
Wow, Ed Norris, racism, classism, and ableism. Go ahead, Ed. Just not hit that trifecta right on out the park. I want to go around the panel and ask you guys so your take on that, because again, that is emblematic of how the story is being framed, that this is a Squeegee Kid related death. I mean, what the fuck is this? Is this drunk driving? Is this COVID? What you mean Squeegee Kid related death? What the fuck does that even mean? Who wants to go first here? Because I would like for one of the journalists to please chime in on why Ed Norris is no longer police commissioner for some time. But Easy Jackson, let me start with you.
Ed Norris is definitely somewhere right now throwing the N-word around at his favorite drinking hole. That rhetoric is the rhetoric that's consistent. They over-exaggerate these stories, just like they've always done. Like I said before, there was Emmett Till, like they've always done this kind of talk. Are there, in every group, yes, there are bad apples, but we say that all the time about the police. And what do? We keep giving them more money and hope that, talking about, we hope that they get better. Like, there's always bad people in every group, but for some reason, Squeegee Kids, he yells, this was our top priority. How about solving the murders in the city? You never did that. No commissioner can proudly say they brought down the murder rate while they were here. How about that? Like, why is this your top priority?
Lisa Snowden, Ed Norris has a radio show. Ed Norris gets called regularly upon local TV news outlets to come and give his comment about crime in the city. What is your take on that rhetoric uttered by Ed Norris and encouraged by the Fox 45 anchor?
I do agree with him that this was inevitable, but not in the same way that he does. I think that all of these news outlets, or not all, a lot of these news outlets have encouraged this level of hate. And I think that Fox is extreme, but I think that it's also there in our more like mainstream news outlets. The week before this happened, The Sun had just run their like 5 million anti-squeegee editorial letter to the editor. And it was ignorant and all of the ists that you just named. And somebody else on Twitter went ahead and did like a compilation of how many other letters had been sent, and The Sun had made the decision to publish. And so when you do these kind of things, you gin up hate. Like the hate is already there. The hate's been there since this country was founded. But these outlets use their power to really embolden people and encourage and give spotlight to people that hate these children. And so like, yes, it was inevitable in that way. And I think that as we're now moving into a place as a country where people, we're still reeling from the pandemic that we're still in, money is not the way that it is, and people are just generally more angry and more violent. These poor kids are gonna like always get the brunt of that. And I'll let Stephen talk about the details about Ed Norris, because that happened very early in my journalism career. So you might have.
Stephen, do you remember what happened to Ed Norris?
Yeah, he was indicted for taking money out of the Widows and Orphans Fund that had been kind of abandoned by the city because they had, codified it in law that people who died during duty would be compensated by the state. But they had said there was a fund that people had contributed to for officers who had died, and it just kind of was sitting there. And when he showed up in Baltimore from New York, he came up with the interesting idea of taking money out of it and using it to purchase lingerie and hotel rooms for his variety of mistresses, which according to the indictment was roughly 9. So, he eventually pled guilty to mortgage fraud, very similar to what Marilyn Mosby is facing now because, he paid back the money. But that was initially basically robbing the Widows and Orphans Fund was his initial crime. So that's a interesting pedigree he has there. But and he spent 6 months in federal prison for that, and then sort of reimagine himself as a talk show host. And full disclosure, I used to go on his show quite a bit back in the aughts when I was at the Baltimore Examiner newspaper. But he's the whole sort of guy that gives us the idea that the answer to poverty and racism and all the horrible ills of the city is more violence. Because he's the person that kind of kicked the ball off on the zero tolerance, arrest everybody in sight. Broken windows theory kind of policing. So he's kind of the last person to talk about this. But to be truthful, he's mostly a favorite of Fox 45. I remember because I worked there, and we would have to talk to him about anything that happened regarding policing. Oh, call Ed Norris. So he's one of those staples of Fox 45 that will do exactly what Lisa said: gin up the hatred, and also say, look, we created this horribly unequal system where very few have almost everything and a lot have nothing. So the best way to deal with it is for a violent government organization to go out and beat people up and throw them in jail and incarcerate them. And he's the person who's kind of made that seem righteous through his behavior and his actions and his words. And I disagree with him on that because it hasn't worked, to be honest. But not just it's unjust, but it hasn't worked. And Squeegee Kids remind us of there's a lot of things that we have done really, really wrong in the sense that we have not taken care of our own people. And so it's great it's almost easy, let's hate the symptom, not the disease, and let's blame these kids for things that these are children, as Lisa points out. They're children. and they're trying to support their families. And so you got to think, how twisted are we that we look at this as some sort of problem that was going to inevitably lead to violence, when the violence is really the poverty that we created.
Speaking of the solutions, quote unquote solutions being proposed by those already holding elected office and those who are seeking elected office, next week is the Democratic primary for the state of Maryland. There's a lot of offices being contested, and one especially of interest here, especially in this case, is the Baltimore State's Attorney's Office, where incumbent Marilyn Mosby is seeking re-election. She's facing a couple of formidable challengers, Thyru Vignagarash. I think I've been mispronouncing this man's name for years. The chick on this package you're about to see pronounced it completely different than how I've been pronouncing. So my apologies to Mr. Thyru.
It's a good pronunciation, though. I like it.
It's the H on the end, right?
Yeah.
But she put an A on. She called him Vignagarasha, and I said that don't sound right. But none of us is pronouncing this man's name right. Is basically what I'm assuming. So my apologies to Mr. Thyru. I'm just gonna call him Mr. Thyru. My bad, Thyru. It's fine. Anyway. So Marilyn Mosby is facing off against Thyru and Ivan Bates, and I'm probably a couple of others. But I wanted to take a look at a compilation of what the current state's attorney and her challengers have put forth in terms of what their quote unquote plans are to address the Squeegee Kid problem. And I hate that. I don't even like that phraseology. The Squeegee Kids are not the problem here. The policies are the problem. Capitalism is the problem. The kids are the symptom. But they have plans. And I want us to take a listen to what their proposed plans be. And I want to get reaction from our panel. So let's take a listen at that.
Just keep continuing to resort to these failed policies of the past and thinking that we're going to somehow see different results. The criminalization of young people, of Black people, it has got to change. We need a communal solution.
Last week, the inevitable happened. We all knew it was a powder keg waiting to be ignited by a spark, because we allow thousands of these encounters every day at major intersections across the city.
Monday, Thyru Vignagarash unveiled his plan to address squeegee workers. He says he'd start with connecting the workers to services, and then his team would turn to the law books.
The thing that is missing from every one of these plans and proposals, every strategy and effort in the last few decades, is a willingness to enforce the law.
We believe that this program should take place. We should hopefully have this under control within the first 60 days. We're working collaboratively together. There are no gimmicks.
Meantime, candidate Ivan Bates says he can take care of the challenge in 60 days.
Our plan's about leadership, working together collaboratively. First and foremost, we will repeal the non-prosecution policies of Ms. Mosby. That will allow the police to do their job, to be able to be police.
His plan starts with a warning and also turns to citations.
My plan's the only one that brings the mayor's office that already has a program in place for the diversion aspect, but also my office is directing these individuals to community court. It's giving them an opportunity to say, we're not here to lock you up. We're not here to prosecute you. We don't even want you to have a criminal record, but you have to make a choice to be held accountable.
Candidates say they're open to additional ideas to get squeegee workers off the streets.
What bothers me a lot about that rhetoric, and Easy Jackson, I'm gonna kick this to you first, because listening to these politicians talking about, people need to be held accountable. They're talking about the kids being held accountable. They're not talking about themselves. They're not talking about the institutions of the city that has allowed these children's situation to become what it is. The failing schools, in food deserts across the city, rising housing costs, dealing with, housing insecurity and a variety of other issues, not having access to health care, people just not caring about them. But leave it to the aspiring state's attorneys. They want to hold the kids accountable and repeal Marilyn Mosby's non-prosecution policies so police can be police. That sounds horrifying to me. Easy, what does all that sound like to you?
The state's attorney's office is an extension of the police, so it's not surprising to hear any of this, this kind of rhetoric from them. I think when I look at, I mean, white supremacy is strong, right? Like white supremacy is powerful. White supremacy has money. And this kind of rhetoric is because of the pressure of the white people with money. Even in the mayor's collaborative meeting that we had yesterday, there were people in there. It's the first meeting, and their questions were like, what do I go back and tell my stakeholders? What do I tell my superiors? You know what I'm saying? It's like they want these boys removed right away. They want them criminalized. Of the three candidates, I think Ivan Bates is the lesser of two evils, but we're always stuck with these options, right? Like, it's at some point you hear it, and there he is with it. Like, the lie is that they don't want them to have records and they don't want to criminalize them. But the truth is that is how they, can please their stakeholders by sending them to the justice system. It's that trick where the police pull it on you all the time. They say, look, man, tell me the truth. You won't get in any trouble. You know what I'm saying? And you tell the truth and they still lock your dumb ass up. You know what I'm saying? So it's just, I don't know. It's heartbreaking to watch, but the answer is that, like, white supremacy is strong. White supremacy is powerful. White supremacy has money. And we'll continue to see this kind of stuff until we can burn it down, literally.
Lisa Snowden, and everyone watching this knows this already. Burn It Down with Kim Brown, we have been very critical of Marilyn Mosby, and specifically her continued prosecution of Keith Davis Jr. But across the country, Marilyn Mosby is widely regarded as a progressive prosecutor. She is an NBC media darling. A lot of people look at Marilyn Mosby and even hear what she had to say in that little clip. She said, I don't want to criminalize 12-year-olds out here trying to make a buck. What is your take from what the current state's attorney and what her challengers have proposed as it regards to dealing with squeegee kids in the intersections?
I mean, I think that Easy basically said what I was thinking more eloquently. I was just sitting here thinking, as a person that has a son who's 14, I don't want my child near any of those people. I don't want my child near Ivan, Marilyn, or Theroux, because they're police. And that doesn't end well. That has never ended well. There's nothing that Easy said that I don't agree with. That, like, Marilyn, if you want to look at it at a continuum, I guess she has done a little tiny bit that hints at progressive, but also while, continuing to prosecute Keith Davis Jr. Theroux is another favorite of Fox 45, which we just got done talking about. So that kind of says where he stands. And yeah, I mean, there's nobody here that's good. This is a bad office. Like, you're not getting any hope out of here. These people are all like going to be, again, drawing from resources that could go to the city. That's a very high paid position, one of the highest paid in the city. And they're the police. That's all I gotta say.
Stephen Janis is somebody who has lived in Baltimore and covered Baltimore for a long time. There have been a lot of different solutions proposed over the decades about how to address the squeegee kids trying to hustle their wares. Even in that package that we saw back from 84, 85, you heard the references to the badges. I mean, that is something that was proposed and ultimately failed, where the kids had to go get badges so they could legally wash windows. There had even been different points where there had been pull-off lanes for people who specifically wanted to support the squeegee kids to sort of pull off and let the kids do their thing, but the kids didn't make any money that way. So these latest set of proposals and suggestions, as somebody who has seen politicians in the city try to deal with this issue time and time and time again, what do these latest policy suggestions sound like to you?
Well, I think it's emblematic of our fixation on the idea of criminalization, because we seem to be because we've kind of lost our ability to imagine anything else for this city. We continually fixate on crime, on the prosecutor's office, which is, generally speaking, as Easy has said, very small relative to the police department in both budget and power. And, because we can't really imagine any other sort of future, we fixate on it because it's an easy thing, that has sort of a very, let's say, less ambiguous problem to imagine. I mean, I think the one thing I noticed about the city, because I've been covering crime here for 15 years, it's always the same dialogue and the same conversation. You know, which police chief or which prosecutor is going to bail us out of this situation? And the crime persists. And just like you saw in that, it's amazing to watch that package. I want you to let me know where you get those things, because they're wonderful to watch, in the sense that it gives you a perspective. Look, we were saying the same things 40 years ago, maybe using different phrasing and you know, obviously offensive ways of characterizing these poor children, but you know, still it was the same issue. Isn't that amazing that the city hasn't progressed in 40 years, hasn't come up with any other way to deal with this? And because we look at it through the prism of criminal justice, and because we're constantly, I mean, there's more coverage of Marilyn Mosby than there is of housing in this city. There's more coverage of Marilyn Mosby than there is of lead poisoning in the city. If we did as many stories on lead poisoning as we did on Marilyn Mosby, we might be somewhere, but we don't do that because we don't care. It's a simplified solution of crime, the simplified narrative of crime that provides fodder for lazy journalists. And, you know, I think that we're going to continue to have. 5 years from now, if I'm still alive, we'll have the same conversation because the media, like Fox 45, will drive the same conversation because it's easy for white people to look, oh my God, look, failure. There's failure. But the failure is of our imagination. And that's the problem. So I got nothing to say about the bullshit of like, who cares who's in office? It's not gonna make a fucking difference unless we change the system. Sorry for swearing.
Stephen James, you know where you are. You know where you at. you can cuss all you want. But you are absolutely right about that, Stephen. I mean, the lack of imagination here is what's really troublesome, because even though I know in journalists on the panel, correct me if I have this mistaken, but I think Baltimore has recently implemented a UBI, Universal Basic Income, for a small amount of residents. I don't know, why don't we offer this UBI to the youth STEM? How come the Squeegee Kids can't get the UBI? Like, to me, that makes perfect sense. If you don't want them there, then give them money not to be there. Matter of fact, why don't you give them enough money so they can spend all their time studying and you know, being children, not having to worry about.
We gave $400 million to the white developer from Towson to build Harbor Point, which he turned around and sold for a huge $200 million profit. To say we don't have the money to give every fucking kid who has a squeegee thing a universal basic income is bullshit, okay? We've given out-of-town developers hundreds of millions of dollars of taxpayer money so that they can get richer. We have the money to take care of these children.
And it's a choice. As Lisa Snowden has said, it is a choice not to do that. It is an intentional choice not to do that. But I'm not going to hold you guys all night, but I did want to just kind of get everybody's opinion about, in terms of this case involving the shooting death of Tim Reynolds, and now this 15-year-old being charged with first-degree murder, which is something I'm still trying to wrap my head around, because what it tells me, and I'm sure it tells everybody, that, you know, Black children, especially poor Black children, really don't have any rights. They don't have a right to a good education. They don't have a right to housing and food, and they do not have a right to defend themselves when they are attacked on the street. And had this been obviously a reverse racial situation, if the white man in possession of a gun would have been attacked by a Black teen wielding a bat, and if he'd have shot and killed that teen, he'd have been heralded as a hero, as somebody, as a good guy with a gun who had every right to defend himself. And I am not seeing that kind of framing surrounding this young man. Lisa, let me start with you. I mean, I know you're not a lawyer. You do not play one on the internet. I'm not a lawyer either. But I got a Juris Doctorate in law and order, and I know that first-degree murder involves premeditation, and there's no way that the state's attorney will be able to prove premeditation on this. What has been the reaction to people that you've spoken with? And this is all new. This is all transpired in the past day or two, where the young man was apprehended and now been charged. What has been the reaction to people that you've been speaking with about these specific charges that the 15-year-old is now facing?
I mean, unfortunately, I have a Twitter addiction, so I kind of have extremes. I have the people that are more progressive in the city and do kind of grassroots work, that are asking the same question that you're asking, like, why is this first-degree murder? like what's going on here. This boy was just defending himself, but there's also always the people that sit under every Justin Fenton tweet, every Baltimore Sun tweet, and they want blood. They want more. They're like, and what else? How can we get these extortionists off the street? Those people aren't satisfied. So, so there's extremes, and I don't think anybody's moving from there. It's really been ugly to watch online. Like, you know, we're all kind of forced away from from each other still because of this pandemic, but Twitter's kind of like this water cooler for all of us. And it's been ugly. It's been real ugly. And it felt like almost like there's been, even among the good white people, the one that live in Hamden and have the, Black Lives Matter, they've been real comfortable letting us know how they really felt. So that's also been going on.
I'm sorry. Anyway, Easy Jackson. What do you see this doing to the city? I mean, this entire scenario, like I said, has already highlighted some of the tensions that already exist amongst class and amongst race. But this is going to be a doozy for Baltimore. That this could have, Freddie Gray sort of implications, I think, for the city potentially, just because I think people are really divided about it. What is your take about the 15-year-old charged as an adult with first-degree murder for defending himself?
Well, I mean, it's business as usual. Like I said earlier, like this has been happening for decades, hundreds of years even. You know what I mean? Like, there's a bit that Dave Chappelle does where he talks about how old is 15, really, and how that gauge is different when it's a young black male. You know what I mean? We all know that first degree murder is way too harsh of a charge to put on this young man. And I'm just fearful to watch it play out because, while I doubt that 12 jurors will convict him of first degree murder, I don't doubt that he's going to, go to prison for this and will not be able, they won't let him use the self-defense charge. And if they do, I'd be surprised. But once again, the world is watching, and we watched Kyle Rittenhouse get away with his thing, and now he's a celebrity moving around. And it's just heartbreaking to know that we will not. This young man will not get that kind of treatment and that kind of fair shake.
Stephen, Janice, I'm gonna be fair here. Marilyn Mosby really gets it from all sides. She really does. I would be disingenuous if I didn't say that. But looking at,
but you know what? That's what she signed up for.
And that's
I'm
fair
sorry.
too. You're fine.
I'm sorry, but that's what she signed up for. And this cry to do all this, it's performative right before the election, and it's just, for me, it's annoying to watch them play in our face and act like we don't see what you're doing. You know what I'm saying? Because every day there are teenagers getting charged as adults, getting shuffled through the legal system. Youth detention centers are not rehabilitation places for these young people. They are preparing them for the penitentiary because the prison industrial system needs that money. So it's just a cycle of going back to that. I'm sorry, I know you were talking to Stephen, but she chose to be a part of the system. Marilyn Mosby has a history of crooked cops in her family. This is her bag. So I don't really sympathize for any hits that she takes on the other end when she turns around and is still invested in locking Black people up. That is her job. I don't care what she say on the campaign trail.
Basically that, easy, no disagreement. And, Stephen, Marilyn Mosby gets a lot of criticism for her failing, her non-prosecutorial policies about lower level offenses. But as Easy said, she orders kids charged as adults, held without bond. She is prosecuting Keith Davis Jr. numerous times, but the officers who are responsible for the death of Freddie Gray were not prosecuted numerous times. How do you see this trial playing out in the city generally? And what do you think I can't say what the long-term consequences are going to be, because they're probably just going to be a lot of more of the same. But how do you see this trial as being different, or do you see it as being potentially different when it comes?
Well, I see it playing out, as Lisa and Easy has said, as the people who have already made judgment about it, having expectations that it will vindicate their preconceived notions of what precipitated this problem. But I do think that if we as a community don't take collective responsibility for what happened on that street corner, I can guarantee you that 5 years from now, again, we'll be having the same conversation. So perhaps it's an opportunity for us to understand that we put that kid on that corner collectively, that we're responsible, and we're responsible for what happened. And until we make that admission, which no one will, I'm very pessimistic, then we'll continue to have the same conversation where, as Lisa points out, everyone stays in their corner and has hopes that events fulfill their expectations and their lack of empathy and understanding. So that's what I think.
Well, listen, if you guys have some parting thoughts, you're welcome to share them. But I don't want to hold y'all hostage because it is Friday night, and I know y'all party people got places to be.
Yeah, come on. I got to get to the liquor store before 9.
Hey, come on now. But you in Baltimore City, them liquor stores stay open pretty late.
Thank God. Yes, they do. Yes, they do. That's true.
Well, listen, it has been a pleasure to see at least two of y'all again. Easy, we're gonna see you on another time. But I am so appreciative and grateful that you all made time to come and talk with me about this very important topic. This thing has been really consuming the Baltimore area over the past week, and I want this young man to be free. I don't want him to go to jail. I think he was well within his rights to defend himself. I'm sorry that the man lost his life, but that man made a decision to get out of his car and cross 8 lanes of traffic when he just could have went the fuck home and been with his family. And now his life is lost, and now this other young man's life is in jeopardy, basically, to be ruined potentially because he was out there trying to earn money for himself because of society, because of capitalism, because of racism. And now he is facing a first-degree murder charge. So it's a very sad situation all around. And obviously, we're going to be keeping an eye on this. I want to thank my guests. We've been speaking with the editor-in-chief of the Baltimore Beat, Lisa Snowden, also joined with artist and organizer Easy Jackson, and the host and producer, one of them anyway, of the Police Accountability Report on The Real News, as well as a very successful documentarian and author, Stephen Janis. Thank all three of you for being here. I love all three of you to pieces, and thank you guys again for everything.
And Kim, thank you for having this forum to talk about this, because I think it's important that you're covering it, and it's great that you're providing people a way to talk about this so that, it's not just all Fox 45.
Thank you, Steve. It's like you, like Lisa, like Easy. We have a duty to Baltimore because Baltimore needs help. Baltimore needs help out here, and everybody's plotting against Baltimore. The people who run Baltimore are plotting against Baltimore. Annapolis is plotting against Baltimore. Like everybody is got it out for Baltimore. So Baltimore, fuck allies. Baltimore needs comrades out here. So yes, thank you for that, because I love Baltimore City. I love Baltimoreans. I love Black Baltimore even more than that. So what happens to Baltimore is meaningful to me. So we are going to elevate the correct narrative about the city and about its residents and what its potential could be if we didn't have fuck boys and girls running shit at the top. So sorry. Sorry for cursing. But thank you guys. Thank you guys for your time. I appreciate y'all making some time on a Friday night. Y'all have a good weekend and be safe out here, please.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kim.
Thank you. Gang, I want to thank the Fire Fam so much for your wonderful comments and engagement here in the chat. Thank you so much to Tasia. Hey, Tay. And Tay is in here too. Thank you, Court. I got your DM about the Fayetteville police chief resigning. We will cover that either on the morning show next week on Black Power Media, or I'll get on it here on BIDWKB. But thank you so much for sending me that. Thank you so much to Franny France. Ursula's in here. Holly's in here. Who else? I said court already. Where's everybody? Man, we missing some people. Dave is in here. What's up, Dave? Afra's in here. What's up, Afra? Who else we got up in here? Who told Latif he could have the night off? Which one of y'all said Latif? Who told Latif he could take the night off? I disagree with that. Schultzy 100, thank you, sweetheart. Holly, Imani's here. Hey, Imani, thank you, baby girl. So thank you all so much for tuning in. And again, and I say this, and I'm glad that you guys are understanding, but I cover DMV because I love DMV. Let me tell you, I'm the most Maryland motherfucker on the planet, okay? I grew up in Law, Maryland, in between DC and Baltimore, and I used to go buy weed in both DC and Baltimore, and go party in DC and Baltimore. And let me tell you, a lot of people in Maryland really can't say that, okay? Because DC area people party in DC, Baltimore area people party in Baltimore. I partied all over this motherfucking state, okay? I'm more Maryland than everybody out here. And so I care about Baltimore. I care about Washington, DC. I care about PG County. And y'all gonna hear about these stories. Y'all gonna get them. Y'all gonna hear them. Somebody just ran us some bucks. Tasia, oh, Tasia, thank you so much for your for your Cash App support. We appreciate that. So, gang, make a note of it. Next Tuesday, show is off. Show is off next Tuesday. Is that the 19th? Tuesday the 19th, show is off. We will return next Friday, but I will be on the Remix Morning Show, Black Power Media, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday mornings, 8 a.m. Eastern to 10 a.m. Please join me along with Dr. Jared Ball, Jackie Lukman, Kamal K. Franklin, Kalanji Changa, the ear doctor. Y'all know what time it is. And just another reminder, gang, we are still doing donations for the July, our first ever abortion fund support. If you go to our community page on the YouTube channel, you will find it there for the Kentucky Health Justice Network. We are raising money for them. People have sent us money to give to them, and that's cool for this month. We're not going to do that next month. Next month for the next abortion fund that we select, I am asking you to just very kindly send the money directly to them. We are going to redirect the donations that have been sent to us on behalf of the Kentucky Health Justice Network to them. But going forward, run them people their money directly, okay? But listen, y'all have sent some funds. And it's important, again, that we do not lose sight of the reproductive justice issue. There are women who are potentially facing death in abortion restrictive states because they do not have access to this critical health care. And we're going to help them, period, point blank. I don't give a fuck what laws these niggas is proposed. Fuck that shit. We helping these women and these pregnant people get access to the health care that they need. And we're starting in Kentucky in July. So do that. And last of all, and certainly not least, COVID, what's her name? COVID is still out here jumping on people, jumping like shit on people. Look at that CDC transmission map. That bitch is red everywhere. High transmission for COVID. And shout out to Molly Shaw. Molly is back stateside visiting her people. She said she was in Charlotte Airport, nah mask. It was nah a mask in sight. These people are out here living reckless. I hope you not one of them people, by the way. Because COVID is still out here jumping on people. Do not be out here fucking around. Wear your motherfucking mask. Wash your hands. Social distance. Monkeypox. They just said this on the news. Monkeypox is monkeypoxing like shit, at least in the DC area. I don't know what it's doing everywhere else, but DC is monkeypox. Monkeypox is here. So stop dapping up people that you don't know. Like, I need y'all to pretend as though the pandemic is very much still happening, because the pandemic is absolutely still happening. The pretending is happening for the people who think that the pandemic is over. It ain't. So stop fucking around, because long COVID is real. I love you guys. On behalf of Tunde and Molly, we will see you back here next Friday, gang. So thank you all so much for your support, Fire Fair. We love y'all. See y'all later. Bye-bye. Take it easy, man. Support your local Squeegee Kid.